You're 40,000 years in the past when one bad fall snaps your leg. There's no ambulance, no X-ray, no hospital, and your group may need to move again before you can even stand. It sounds like a death sentence, but prehistoric skeletons contain fractures that healed, and injuries that likely required help from someone else. Today, a broken bone means a cast, maybe a metal rod, and a doctor telling you exactly how it's healing. For most of human history, none of that existed. No X-rays, no antibiotics, no anesthesia. And yet, some people survived. In many cases, the evidence suggests they did not survive alone. We're going to look at what that help actually looked like, from a Stone Age cave to a real medieval surgical textbook, and end with the invention that finally let doctors see a bone instead of guessing. Here's why this was so dangerous. A serious fracture could disable you completely. No walking, no working, no gathering your own food. Some fractures caused serious bleeding or permanent damage to how you moved for the rest of your life. And if the broken bone tore through the skin, that wound was now open to infection, with no way to fight it once it set in. In a small group, a badly broken leg wasn't just painful. It could threaten the injured person's ability to find food, stay protected, or move with everyone else. Someone else may have needed to bring food, provide protection, or help the injured person move while the bone healed. Meet Shanidar I, a Neanderthal man who lived between 40,000 and 45,000 years ago in what's now Iraq. His skeleton shows a crushed eye socket that likely blinded him, a withered right arm, and a healed fracture in his lower leg. He survived for years with injuries that would likely have made hunting, gathering, and moving without assistance extremely difficult. Researchers can't know the caregiver's motives. The bones don't record kindness or love. But the evidence strongly suggests sustained assistance, someone bringing him food, protecting him, helping him move. Shanidar I was likely not managing it alone. A healed foot fracture from Mahnot Cave in Israel and a healed fibula from the Neanderthal site of La Fay-Ra CE in France provide additional evidence that serious fractures sometimes healed in deep prehistory. Fast forward to ancient Egypt, and we don't have to guess anymore, we have the actual instructions. The Edwin Smith Papyrus is the oldest known surgical text in the world, describing 48 real injury cases, including fractures, with real diagnosis and real treatment notes. For a broken bone, Egyptian physicians used wooden boards, sometimes strips of palm bark, padded with linen, then wrapped snugly to hold the bone in place. For open wounds, they packed them with honey and grease and changed the dressing daily. Honey actually does fight bacteria, so this wasn't just ritual. And here's the best part. This isn't only a story on paper. Archaeologists have found actual mummies still wearing their original linen-wrapped splints. This is physical proof, still sitting in a museum case today. The Greeks pushed this further. The physician Hippocrates wrote entire manuals on setting fractures, pulling the limb back into alignment, then splinting it, but only once the initial swelling had gone down. Rush the splint and you'd trap the swelling underneath it. That's not superstition. That's the same basic logic a modern doctor uses when they wait before casting a fresh injury. Centuries later in Rome, the physician Celsus wrote something that still holds up today. He warned that bandaging a limb too tightly was dangerous. It could cut off circulation and cause the tissue to die. That's a 2,000-year-old warning that's still basically correct first aid advice. Now you've probably heard medieval medicine was just superstition and guesswork. That's not quite fair. We actually have a real named 14th century medical text. A surgeon named Yperman wrote down his exact process. 2 assistants pulled the limb straight while the surgeon aligned the bone by hand. Then came not 1 splint, but 7. Wooden strips wrapped in felt and linen, tied down with cords. The wound underneath was dressed and checked, and the whole thing stayed in place for over 2 weeks while the bone knitted back together. That's not guesswork. That's a real, structured medical procedure. And the skeletons back it up. In one examined skeletal sample from medieval St. Mary Spital in London, researchers found signs of healed fractures in roughly a third of the skeletons. That doesn't tell us how often fractures were fatal, but it does show that many injuries healed enough to leave clear remodeling in the bone. Skeletal evidence can only show us the people who survived long enough for healing to become visible. Those who died soon after the injury are much harder to see in this record. So here's the real takeaway. Ancient humans weren't just improvising tools out of desperation. Across tens of thousands of years, from a Neanderthal cave to a medieval surgeon's workshop, surviving a serious fracture could require other people to keep you fed, protected, and mobile while your body healed. And evidence of that cooperation may still be written into the bones themselves. It took a surprisingly long time to get from splints to what we have now. In 1851, a Dutch military surgeon named Antoinius Matthijssen figured out that dry plaster powder rubbed into loose cotton strips would harden within minutes once wet, the direct ancestor of the cast you'd get today. Then, less than 50 years later, in 1895, a German physicist named Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays almost by accident, while experimenting with a completely different kind of tube. Within months, not decades, doctors around the world were using them to actually see a broken bone through the skin for the first time in human history. Splinting got doctors most of the way there. X-rays are what finally let them see what they were actually treating. So, back to that fall, 40,000 years ago, no ambulance, no X-ray, no hospital. And across every era we just walked through, some people still survived. The treatments mattered, but so did the people who helped them through recovery. The tools have changed completely, that part hasn't. Subscribe for more strange stories about how humans survived the problems we take for granted.